She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She didn't stop the music. While he was dancing with her, believing the night belonged to them, she quietly placed the ring into his mother's hand, and walked out of his life forever. She loved him in a quiet, patient way, the kind of love that doesn't demand but hopes, that doesn't shout but listens. From the beginning, her love was built on belief. Belief that time would soften his fears, that consistency would earn certainty, that one day he would look at her and see not just comfort but forever. She stayed through pauses and silences, through half-promises that sounded like future plans but never truly became them. Every day she chose him without being asked to. She adjusted her expectations, convincing herself that love didn't need urgency, that commitment could arrive slowly, like a sunrise. She learned to read his moods, to celebrate small gestures as if they were milestones. A smile became reassurance, a gentle touch became a promise, a moment of affection became hope. In waiting, she taught herself patience, even when her heart quietly ached for assurance. Time passed, and with it, her dreams matured while his remained undecided. She imagined shared mornings, familiar routines, and a life built together, while he spoke in maybes and laters. She listened carefully, always translating his hesitation into optimism. When he said he wasn't ready, she heard not yet. When he delayed decisions, she believed he was protecting something fragile, not avoiding something serious. But waiting changes love. It stretches it, reshapes it, tests its strength. Her love began to carry questions it never had before. She started to notice how often she was reassuring herself instead of being reassured by him. How often she was explaining his absence to her own heart. How often she was loving enough for two people, hoping her devotion would eventually fill the space where his certainty should have been. The waiting became heavier than the love itself. Each passing moment asked her for more patience, more understanding, more sacrifice. She realized she had been standing still while life quietly moved forward around her. Love had asked her to grow, but waiting had asked her to pause, and she could no longer confuse endurance with devotion. Her decision did not arrive in a moment of anger or heartbreak, but in a long stretch of quiet understanding. It formed slowly, in the spaces between conversations, in the pauses where answers never came. She did not wake up one day wanting to leave, she woke up realizing how long she had been staying without being truly held. The silence around her love had grown louder than any argument ever could. She stopped asking the questions she already knew the answers to. She stopped explaining her needs, because they had begun to sound like apologies. In that stillness, she listened, not to his words, but to his absence of action. Love, she realized, speaks clearly when it is certain, and hesitates endlessly when it is not. The quiet taught her what his voice never did. Her heart had conversations she never shared. She practiced strength alone, preparing herself for a life that did not revolve around waiting. Every unreturned promise, every delayed step forward, added clarity rather than pain. She did not want drama or confrontation, she wanted peace, and peace demanded honesty with herself before honesty with him. The decision was silent because it had already been discussed too many times in her mind. There was nothing left to explain, nothing left to convince. She understood that love should not require constant translation or interpretation. When care is real, it does not hide behind confusion. She chose to believe actions more than words, and in doing so, she chose herself. There was tenderness in her silence. She still loved him, but love no longer meant surrendering her future. She moved gently, carrying respect for what they had been and clarity about what they could never become. Her choice was not punishment, it was self-preservation. She did not walk away to hurt him, but to stop hurting herself. In her quiet resolve, she found a strength she had never needed before. She accepted that some decisions lose their power when spoken aloud, and that some endings are meant to be lived, not announced. Silence became her final truth, not because she lacked words, but because words had already been exhausted. The music wrapped around them like a familiar memory, warm and convincing, creating the illusion that nothing had changed. As he guided her across the floor, he believed the rhythm was proof of stability, that shared laughter and practiced steps meant love was still perfectly in sync. To him, the dance was reassurance, a symbol that they were still moving forward together, even if the direction had never been clearly defined. She followed his lead with grace, allowing the moment to unfold exactly as he expected. Her smile was gentle, effortless, and carefully composed. It carried no accusation, no visible sorrow, only the softness of someone who had already made peace with what the moment truly was. While he felt closeness, she felt distance, measured not in steps but in years of emotional waiting. The dance became a mirror of their relationship. He moved confidently, certain she would always be there when the music played. She adjusted quietly, matching his pace, even when it required her to step back from her own needs. The lights shimmered around them, blurring reality into something beautiful enough to be believed, if only for the length of a song. Every spin reminded her of how often she had circled around the same hopes. Every pause echoed the conversations that never reached resolution. She knew he saw the dance as a promise of continuity, but for her, it was a farewell disguised as intimacy. Illusions are most powerful when they look like comfort, and he mistook familiarity for permanence. As the song reached its softer moments, he held her closer, unaware that this closeness was temporary. The world around them faded for him, but for her, it sharpened. She noticed details she had ignored before: the weight of finality in her chest, the calm acceptance in her breathing, the clarity that arrived when expectation finally dissolved. The dance did not reveal the truth to him, it concealed it. He believed the movement meant staying, while she understood it meant ending. In that shared space, two realities existed side by side, touching but never meeting, and the illusion held just long enough for the music to continue while love quietly stepped away. The ring had once been a promise resting gently against her skin, a small circle carrying enormous meaning. It symbolized patience, belief, and the quiet hope that love would one day become certain. For a long time, she wore it not just as jewelry, but as reassurance to herself that waiting had a purpose, that the future was simply taking its time to arrive. Over the years, the ring absorbed her emotions. It witnessed moments of joy and stretches of doubt, celebrations that felt incomplete, and conversations that ended without clarity. Every glance at it reminded her of what she was holding onto and what she was slowly losing. It was meant to mark a beginning, yet it became a measure of how long she had been standing still. She often turned it gently on her finger, imagining the life it was supposed to lead her into. She pictured shared responsibilities, shared names, shared tomorrows. But imagination cannot replace intention, and the ring remained a symbol. Without action behind it, love had given meaning to the ring, but hesitation had emptied it of direction. The night she decided to let it go, the ring felt heavier than it ever had before. Not because of regret, but because of clarity. It no longer represented hope, it represented delay. It no longer spoke of unity, it spoke of imbalance. She understood then that holding onto it was holding onto a version of love that existed only in expectation. Handing the ring away was not rejection, but release. It was her way of returning what had been entrusted to time and patience. In that gesture, she acknowledged the truth she had avoided for too long, that promises lose their meaning when they are not carried forward by choice. The ring passed from her hand with quiet dignity, changing destinies in its movement. What once bound her to waiting now freed her to move on. It closed a chapter written in hope and opened space for a future that did not require endless patience, reminding her that love should lead forward, not keep someone circling the same moment indefinitely. She did not leave in anger, and she did not leave to be remembered as a wound. Her departure was gentle, almost invisible, shaped by self-respect rather than resentment. There were no raised voices, no accusations to make the moment heavier than it already was. She understood that some endings lose their meaning when they become loud, and she wanted this one to remain true to who she had become. Dignity guided her steps. She had spent too long explaining herself, softening her needs, and justifying her patience. Leaving quietly was her way of reclaiming the strength she had slowly given away. She chose calm over chaos, clarity over confrontation. In walking away without drama, she protected the love that once existed from turning into bitterness. There was courage in her silence. It takes bravery to step out of a life you imagined without demanding acknowledgement or apology. She did not need him to chase her or suddenly understand everything he had failed to see. Her peace mattered more than recognition. She trusted that truth would eventually reach him, even if it arrived too late. She carried no desire to punish him with absence. Her leaving was not meant to teach him a lesson, it was meant to teach herself one. She learned that self-worth does not beg for commitment, and love does not need to be proven through endurance. By choosing herself, she honored the years she had already given. As she walked away, she felt the quiet strength of closure settle within her. The future no longer felt like a question mark waiting for his decision. It became open, uncertain in a way that felt honest rather than painful. Her dignity allowed her to leave without erasing the memories, without denying the love that had once been real. She understood that some love stories are not meant to end with togetherness, but with growth. Leaving without drama was her final act of love, both for him and for herself, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful goodbyes are the ones spoken through action rather than words.